Hello, everyone. Welcome. And sorry, we're a little bit late, running a little bit behind, but I'm Dr. Julie Gilbert and with Rachel Matthews. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
And we hope they had a great weekend. There was a little sun popped out here and there. Did you get any sun where you live, Rachel? Just a
You know,
skosh.
just a little bit. I think where I'm at in Albany, we don't get as much as you guys do in Salem, which is interesting.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we had,
so I
I
think
mean,
you guys
I'm in
have.
Jefferson and we had a beautiful
Mm,
time on Saturday, but Sunday was like, you got to get, yeah.
yeah,
And what's it like out there today? I haven't even looked.
it's just soupy. It's
Yeah, it's
foggy and
soupy.
gray and
Yeah.
soupy. Not the yummy kind of soupy.
Oh, cold. Cold. I
Yeah,
guess it is January. So,
yeah, I guess it is. We're
yeah.
just a bunch of complainers. Look at us
I
just
know, I
complaining
know.
about
Okay, what
Oregon.
can we do to sweeten up our lives right now? Well,
Ooh,
let's
I
talk
like that.
about
Nice.
our chapter in Michael Pollan's Food Rules.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chapter
And
35.
yeah, yeah. Tell us all about that, Rachel.
Okay, so I love that little segue you used there. Sweeten up your life. So, chapter 35 eat sweet foods as you find them in nature.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So,
Eat
we're,
sweet foods if we find them in nature. And what he says is really so true that sugar in nature comes with fiber. When you find sugar, you will
fiber.
find fiber.
Yes. Yes. This is,
Your
I
favorite
mean,
thing, fiber.
gosh, we pound this word so much. It is my
Mhm.
favorite. It is my favorite. I know.
And why is
Fiber.
fiber
It
so
makes a difference
important
between,
when
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you, and I think you were about to say, I was like, why is fiber so important when you're eating sugar or natural sugar? Fructose,
Yeah.
glucose. Yeah, yeah. Why is that so important? Sucrose, I should say. Why is that so important, Rachel? The fiber part.
So I'll read what he actually says in the book here because he
Hmm.
says it perfectly. He says, in nature, sugars almost always come packaged with fiber,
Right.
which slows their absorption and gives you a sense of satiety. That word
Hmm.
means like the fullness, right? Like you feel like you ate something
Right.
before you've ingested too many calories. That's why you're better off eating the fruit rather than drinking the juice.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, you get a stop signal. You
Mm-hmm.
get a stop signal when you eat the natural, the whole fruit, here it is, the whole piece of fruit that comes with the fiber. You get a natural stop signal from the fiber. That's exactly right. And yeah, so the fiber is doing a couple of things. Well, I mean, I can think of three, and you might be able to fill in more. Number one, like he says, gives you that natural stop signal. Number two, it slows the absorption of that sugar into the bloodstream, which is so important because we don't want blood sugars going, woo, we want blood sugars that do this, right? And then number three, that fiber, depending on, it is food for the bacteria in my gut, right? So I can think of those three things that fiber in foods, including fruit, does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about keep you regular?
Ooh,
That's part of it too,
number
right?
four. Number four.
Number 4.
Yeah, that's right. And
That's
that's
always a
why we need
bonus.
both soluble and insoluble. Soluble and insoluble. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thank you. Keeps
question,
you regular.
where do I get soluble and where do I get insoluble fiber?
Ooh, good one. Well, when I think of insoluble, I think of things that don't break down, like cellulose, right? That's a fiber that just goes, that I can't
Mm-hmm.
break down and digest and absorb. So that's going through. So like celery,
Mm-hmm.
insoluble fiber.
Yeah. And the way that I understand it, and I could be wrong about this, but for the most part, I think all fruit and vegetables have both.
Yeah.
soluble and insoluble. Just they're going to be at different levels. Some will be
Right.
higher on one. So
Right.
if you're
Yeah.
eating a nice variety and a diversity of fruits and vegetables, you're getting enough of both.
You're going to get both. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You're going to get
Yeah.
both. Yeah. And I think that's exactly right. So fiber's so great. And it's interesting too, because, when we eat fruit in like the packaged yogurt, that maybe they've already added more sugar to it. So it's kind of making my brain think it should be sweeter than it is. And yeah, a couple of things here that is kind of going through my brain. So unfortunately, the processing of food has brought in more sugar so that it's changed my palate and what it thinks is sweet enough. Right. And
Yes.
so if I go back to just eating fruit, it doesn't seem as sweet until I've been off of the processed foods for a long period of time. And that's different for everybody, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month, maybe 6 months. And then when I eat that fruit, I'm like, wow, it's a burst of flavor. It tastes so sweet.
Now, I love that point. That's a really,
Go ahead.
Really quick. I want to speak to that because that's an excellent point. And it does work. It does happen. I swear it does. I promise. But it's hard to get to that point if you're used to highly processed foods, eating a lot of sugar, drinking a lot of sugar sweetened drinks. That palate of yours is going to think that fruit or some vegetables even have a sweetness to them.
Right.
It will seem so minimal. It won't give you that bang that you're looking for. So it does take time to get through that. But another thing that I thought of as you were describing that is that, let's say you drink a cup of orange juice, okay? It probably took 2, maybe 3 oranges to juice to get 1 cup of orange juice. So already you're tripling the calorie intake just with the juice. But what I also realized is that when you drink that juice, it's such a huge, powerful punch of sweet flavor because it's condensed in that drinking form.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas if you eat an orange, you sometimes taste a little bit of the peel that's a little bit bitter, and you're getting sweet and bitter, but also chewy and stringy in the fiber. So it's diluting out that sweet punch that you get, which is another. I never had thought of it that way, but it's so true. A big swig of juice is like so much sweet.
Right. That's exactly right. And you are kind of deprived. When I'm drinking the juice, this is how I've retrained it, because I don't drink juice anymore. But I had actually deprived myself of the fun of chewing food, and the satisfaction and the satiety that I get from actually chewing food. And it's interesting too, because if you measure hormones, the hunger and satiety hormones, and if you look at the hunger and satiety pathways, so in your brain, and then measure the hormones in the gut, drinking that juice, it does not turn down ghrelin in my stomach the same way that eating that fruit does. So the hunger hormones are affected differently. The other thing is that it's so much fructose. That's the sweet part of the fruit of the fruit sugar is the fructose. It's fructose and glucose. I'm saying this correctly. And it's the fructose actually that is the sweetest part. And there's so much fructose in the juice versus the orange, you're overstimulating or hyperstimulating certain area of your brain, which doesn't necessarily satisfy. It just keeps a desire for that sweet taste going. Whereas eating the fruit doesn't do that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I love the way you describe that because we often talk about chewing signals our brain that we're eating and signals just slow down the hunger hormone. But the way you described it was a really, I hopefully people listening are understanding that this actual chewing motion is an
Mhm.
actual physical trigger that sends messages to the brain and to the gut. Hey, you're eating something, you're chewing. And so it prepares the body for digestion, but it
Mhm.
also starts to slow down those hunger hormones because of what's happening. Drinking juice. And by the way, he talks about in the book, soda and sweetened other drinks are not off the list here of the culprits, right? So it's not just
Right.
juice we're talking about. It's of course any or sweetened or sodas and teas and drinks like that. But yeah, we don't get
Snapple.
those Snapple. Yeah. Yeah. And again, the same pathway is happening like you're saying. It's so highly sweetened, even if it's a sugar free. And no matter what it's sweetened with, it's that big pow of sweet that we're craving more.
Mhm.
We're
Yeah.
craving more of that throughout the day.
Yeah. Yes, we are bypassing or crowding out the natural, I mean, our other hunger and satiety pathways that regulate our weight so
Mm,
beautifully. We're kind of crowding them out. We're overriding them by sending those hyper signals and, beyond signals, that just a super sweet taste to another area of our brain, even.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very interesting. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now I'm somebody who was a Diet Coca-holic, Rachel. And I mean, I loved everything about the diet soda. I didn't drink
Mm-hmm.
soda, but I loved the sweet taste of the diet soda. And that still, even though no calories are coming in, that still triggers my
Mm-hmm.
brain in a way that's not helpful for healthy hunger and satiety signaling, and then for healthy weight regulation. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think that's super interesting too.
It is, and somehow we've gotten the message that if it's diet Coke, diet soda, diet drinks, you're safe, you're scot
Yeah.
free. Whether
Mhm.
you're diabetic or you have weight to lose or any other diseases, people think, oh, it's diet, so we're go, and
Right.
it's just false. It's
Yeah.
completely not true.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Rachel, what are some of your favorite fruits that you've rediscovered in this journey that you're on?
Ooh, my favorite fruits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I always have my go-tos: apples, bananas,
Mm-hmm.
pears, lemons, limes. I eat a lot of citrus, which
Mm-hmm.
really helps absorb with the iron and helps break down certain
Right.
foods.
Yep.
You know, I really like pineapple, and I
Mm.
don't typically buy it or eat it or anything. I just ignore it. I don't know why. So every once in a while, I'll go out and get a pineapple, and I'm like, what? It's amazing. I forgot how delicious it is. So that's one that I like to remind myself because it has some unique health properties
Mm-hmm.
to its own.
Yeah.
So I want to try to incorporate that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. Well, I love the berries, and that's probably
Yes.
the fruit that I
Yes.
eat the most, especially because I know they're grown in Oregon, and I picked them most of the time,
Hmm.
and um, I have them readily available in my freezer. So I
Hmm.
love blueberry, and they're so well, strawberry, blueberry, raspberry, Marionberry. That's one of my
Hmm.
favorites too. It's just so wonderful. So and they're just so chock full of those deep purple um, uh,
The
colors.
polyphenols.
Yeah,
Yeah.
polyphenols. Thank you, and the anthocyanins. And I know that
Yes.
I could just like, oh, this is keeping my HDL up. So I love eating
Yeah.
those. Those are some of my favorite. And then pomegranates. I love pomegranates. My husband, he planted a whole hedge of pomegranates, in, um, and so we've actually eaten some of the pomegranates that we've grown. So that's kind of fun. They're still in their early years. I think it takes us several years for a fruit tree or bush to produce, but we're still in the young phase. And then my absolute favorite tree that we have is called the kumquat tree. I think plumcot, or I think it's plumcot. Yeah, it's a combination of,
Oh.
and it is. Now I have to say, I'm sure this is hyper hybridized for sweetness, because this is like candy. And so, yeah, I know that we've done that to fruit, and vegetables. We have hybridized them to increase the sugar content. That's where we are. Yeah.
Yes, a good reminder of that for me was this summer we were backpacking out in the Oregon wilderness, and we came across a wild berry bush, and I can't remember it's the name of them are escaping me, but we knew that they were safe and they were edible. And these berries were like smaller than the size of a dime. I mean, just tiny little things.
Right.
And that's a natural wild berry. And then I think about the giant berries that we get. They're like the size of a grape.
Yeah.
They're just huge, and they're so flavorful and so delicious. But again, very far from the wild ancestor that it once was.
Yeah. Yes. So enjoy your fruit. And, and I'm just going to say that some people can get too much fruit. Don't forget that the majority of the fiber you really want coming from vegetables, in my mind,
yes.
And your fruit's dessert. So, well, so Rachel, we've been learning all these food rules. And I went to make one of my favorite recipes. We invited some friends over for dinner. This is what I'm eating tonight for dinner, by the way, leftovers. But we invited some friends, and it was that soupy, like you said. So I wanted something, with robust flavor, but warming. And then I kind of remembered a recipe I hadn't made in a long time, and I dug it out of my books. And now that I have been learning all these food rules, I was going down the ingredient list, and I was like, well, I can't use that. It had Crisco in it, by the way.
Oh.
It had Crisco in the ingredient list. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And then it did have a couple of other things in there that I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out but one of them had like seasonal, which is a combination of spices, but, I don't want to name names, but in the Lowry's seasonal, if you read the ingredient list, there are things in there that you don't want in there. Like there's sugar in there, and there's maltodextrin in there, and there's something that keeps it from caking. And then, and they probably have some MSG or some, there are other things in there. Like, I don't even know what this is. So, okay. So how do I go? So I looked up a recipe for seasonal, and there's a million different things that you can put in it. But anyway, I ended up making my own, seasonal with my own spice mix. And I didn't use the Crisco. And actually it was chicken paprika, by the way. And it turned out really good. It was absolutely delicious, very warming. You were supposed to serve it over these potato noodles that, first of all, I couldn't find. And secondly, okay, what can I do that's less processed than potato noodles? Well, gosh, I can do potatoes, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So I served this delicious, just comforting chicken paprika that had beautiful mushrooms in it and peppers. And then I served that and all these different spices in there. I mean, it had basil and garlic, and it had oregano, and of course paprika and ginger, and actually it had curry powder and cayenne pepper. Anyway, it had so many beautiful flavors, and it was just so delicious. And I served it over those tiny little purple all the way through potatoes. It was really good. And so we have leftovers, and that's what I'm having today for dinner.
That sounds incredible. I bet you're so happy you have leftovers.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Well, so for dinner for me, I'm eating leftovers as well, because I usually do a ton of food prep on the weekends, and we typically eat a lot of leftovers through the week because we've done some prep. I came across a new recipe for a beefless stew. So I've been looking for I don't eat beef anymore, but I'm looking for a substitute for that good old fashioned beef stew my parents used to make, right? Big chunks of carrots and onions and celery and potatoes, and then the beef. So I found this recipe. Same as you, I made my own Italian seasoning, which was better than any store-bought Italian seasoning I've ever had. I think because there's like 7 different spices in it, whereas
Yeah.
a normal Italian seasoning maybe has like 2 or 3. So this is just so good. I put some spiced paprika in it, not just regular, not spiced, smoked. Smoked paprika, a little bit of cooking sherry, red wine. And then instead of, so it calls for portobello mushrooms. That's like the meat substitute, but my husband doesn't eat mushrooms.
Okay.
I'm very sad about this.
Yeah.
If you know me, this is like, I'm trying to like find a way to sneak it into our eating. But instead we use seitan, which is a wheat gluten protein source. So that was the protein meats. And it was just, it's like what you said, it was comforting. It was this rich, incredible red, brothy soup. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it, but it was just like every bite was just that comfort. It just felt so good. And everything was homemade and it was just so good. So
Good.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And enjoy that meal tonight because, we need a little more comfort in this kind of weather that we have. But it can be homemade. It can be super tasty. And it can be just so good for us. So, when we follow the food rules, right?
When we follow the food rules. Yep. Love it.
All right. Well, thanks for this great conversation, Rachel. And until next time. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.